My son and his wife left for a cruise vacation, asking me to look after my grandson, an 8-year-old child, who hadn't spoken a single word since the day he was born. The instant the front door shut behind them, the boy went still, met my gaze directly, and spoke in a flawless, clear voice, "Grandpa, please, you can't drink that." Ice flooded my veins. Everything I thought I knew came crashing down. I had once been a warrior. Now I was heading back into battle, only this time the fight was for my family. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Drop a comment with where you're watching from your city, your country. Because in the next few minutes, you'll understand why I'm sharing this story with the world no matter where you are. At 68, after 2 tours in Vietnam and burying my wife 4 years back, I thought I knew fear. I was wrong. True terror sounds like an 8-year-old boy breaking 8 years of silence to tell you someone's trying to end your life. My son Christopher pulled into my driveway just after 9 that Thursday morning, his silver sedan gleaming in the October sun. His wife Amber stepped out, first blonde hair, perfect designer sunglasses perched on her head. "Dad, thanks again for this," Christopher said, hauling their luggage. 4-day Caribbean cruise. Our anniversary. Lucas climbed out of the back seat small for 8, clutching that stuffed elephant he'd carried since he was 2. The doctors said he'd never speak. Non-verbal, they called it. But when that boy looked at you with those brown eyes, I always wondered if there was more going on than anyone suspected. Inside my kitchen, Amber set a small box on my counter. "Harold, I've prepared your special chamomile tea, the blend that helps you sleep." I nodded, though I couldn't remember mentioning sleep trouble. "It's very important you drink it twice daily, morning and evening." She lined up the packets with careful precision. "I've made enough for the entire time we're gone. At your age, consistency matters for your health." Something flickered across her face then, quick as a snake strike. My combat instincts kicked in that sixth sense from hostile territory. But this was my daughter-in-law talking about tea. I pushed the feeling down. "We should go," Christopher said from the doorway. I watched him kiss Lucas's forehead, but his eyes slid away from his son's face. Couldn't quite look at him. "Be good for Grandpa," Amber told Lucas. Her voice had no warmth. "Remember what we talked about?" Lucas didn't respond. He never did. They left in a blur of goodbyes. I stood on my porch, Lucas's hand in mine, watching that sedan disappear down Maple Street. The morning air was crisp leaves just turning. Should have been peaceful. The door clicked shut behind us. Lucas's fingers clamped around my wrist. Hard. Urgent. I looked down. He'd dropped his elephant. His other hand pointed toward the kitchen, toward that box of tea. His whole body was shaking. "Lucas." I knelt down. "What's wrong, buddy?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again. His eyes were wide with 8 years of dammed-up words finally breaking free. Then he spoke. The voice was rough, unpracticed, but crystal clear. "Grandpa," he whispered, those brown eyes locked on mine, "don't drink the tea. Mom put something bad in it." The world tilted. My knees almost buckled. I gripped his shoulders, staring at this child who had never spoken. Not once. "Lucas," I managed. Did you speak?" His small hands grabbed my shirt. The terror in his face was real, adult, knowing. "Please, Grandpa," his voice cracked. "Please don't drink it." My 8-year-old grandson, who hadn't spoken a single word since birth, had just saved my life. And I had no idea how much more he was about to tell me. I guided Lucas to the kitchen table, my hands still shaking from what I'd just heard. The boy who'd been silent his entire life had spoken, and every word made my blood run colder. "Sit down, buddy," I said, pulling out a chair. I poured us both water. "Not tea. Never that tea again. I need you to tell me everything. Start from the beginning." Lucas's voice was still rough, like an engine that hadn't run in years, but the words came steady and clear. "I was 5, he said, looking down at his hands. "I was at the doctor's office with Mom. I saw a toy I liked and I said Mama without thinking. Just once. The doctor heard me." I waited, my jaw clenched. That night Mom came into my room after Dad was asleep. His voice got quieter. She said if I ever spoke again without her permission, she'd send me to a special hospital, a place where I'd never see you or Daddy again. She said they give children shots there that make them sleep forever. 5 years old, threatened with death for speaking one word. "I was so scared, Grandpa." His brown eyes met mine. So I stopped talking to everyone about everything. How long have you been able to understand things? I asked, keeping my voice level despite the rage building in my chest. Always, he said simply. I taught myself to read when I was 6. From the captions on TV, from your books when you'd leave them out. This boy had been trapped in silence, but his mind had been working the whole time. Learning, watching, understanding everything. I listened to adult conversations, Lucas continued. People think because I don't talk, I don't hear. But I hear everything, Grandpa. What did you hear about the tea? 6 months ago, Mom was on the phone in her bedroom. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard her talking. About medicine, about making you confused, about making sure you wouldn't wake up. His voice cracked. That's when I started looking for proof. The kitchen felt too small suddenly. My daughter-in-law had been planning to eliminate me for at least 6 months, maybe longer. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She watches everything I do. Everywhere I go, every time you visit. Lucas's hands twisted together. This week was my first chance, when they left, when I knew we'd be alone and she couldn't stop me. 4 days. That's all the time we had before they came back. Before Amber realized her plan had failed. Grandpa, Lucas said, and something in his voice made me focus completely on him. I didn't just hear things. I kept papers, evidence. I've been hiding them where Mom would never think to look. What kind of papers? Her research. About old people in medicine. About making people look sick when they're not. About... He paused. About making sure people don't wake up. My grandson had been gathering intelligence like a trained operative. For months. Maybe years. And he was 8 years old. There's more, he added quietly. Papers about me, too. About why she hates me so much. I thought about Christopher's inability to look his son in the eye. About Amber's cold voice when she spoke to him. There were layers to this I hadn't even begun to understand. Lucas's small hand squeezed mine. It's in my room, Grandpa. Everything she's been planning. Do you want to see it? Lucas led me upstairs to his room, past the family photos lining the hallway. Pictures of Christopher's childhood, my wife Mary smiling in her garden, Lucas as a baby. Normal family memories hiding something rotten underneath. His room still had the dinosaur wallpaper I'd helped put up when he was 4. I'd thought bright colors might encourage him to communicate. Now I knew he'd been communicating all along, just not out loud. But Lucas didn't go to his dresser. Instead, he knelt beside his wooden bed frame and slipped his small fingers into a gap beneath a floorboard he'd pried loose long ago. Mom thinks I don't understand anything, Lucas whispered. She used to leave these papers on her desk when it was just the 2 of us at home. She'd make me stand there and watch her work because she knew I couldn't tell anyone. Once she got an emergency phone call and forgot to take a yellow envelope with her to the bathroom. I took it. I knew if I took everything she'd notice, so I only took the most important pages and hid them here. He pulled out a thin stack of papers folded small to fit the gap. Mom tore the house apart looking for them. Lucas said, fear and pride mixing in his eyes. She even yelled at Dad for losing her documents. But she never suspected me. She called me a broken decoration in this house. My hands weren't steady as I unfolded those papers. The first document was a printout from a medical website. Signs of elder abuse and neglect. Yellow highlighter marked specific sections. Progressive memory loss. Increased confusion and disorientation. Changes in sleep patterns. Every symptom I'd been experiencing for the past 2 years. The second document made my stomach turn. Medication interactions in elderly patients. The margins were covered in Amber's handwriting, calculations, dosages, notes about spacing administration to avoid detection. But the third document made everything real. Progress notes, titled HB Timeline, in Amber's precise script. My initials. My life reduced to a clinical experiment. March 2024. First dose administered 1 milligram lorazepam. Subject tired attributes to normal aging. June 2024. Increased to 2 milligrams plus diphenhydramine. Memory lapses noted. September 2024. Added zolpidem. Desired confusion patterns achieved. I read that last line twice. Desired confusion patterns. She'd been tracking my decline like a science project. adjusting dosages until she got the results she wanted. Then I reached the final entry. October 10th, 2024. Just 4 days ago. Prepared concentrated doses for cruise week. Calculated amounts should ensure permanent resolution within 48 to 72 hours of administration. My hands shook. Permanent resolution. That's how she described ending my life, like closing a business deal. Grandpa, Lucas said quietly, there's one more thing about why she hates me so much. He reached back into the floorboard hiding place and pulled out another paper from the very bottom. DNA paternity test results. Christopher Bennett. 0% probability of paternity. The room tilted. I read it again. 0%. I found it 2 years ago. Lucas whispered, tears starting down his cheeks. I'm not really your grandson. Not by blood. That's why, Mom, I dropped the papers. Pulled that boy into my arms so tight he gasped. Stop. My voice came out rougher than I intended. You listen to me, soldier. Blood doesn't make family. Love makes family. Honor makes family. I held him at arm's length so he could see my face, see that I meant every word. You are my grandson. That will never change. Ever. Lucas buried his face in my shoulder and cried. 8 years of fear and silence finally breaking. I held him, this brave kid who'd been protecting both of us the only way he knew how. When he finally quieted, we sat together on his small bed. The papers lay on the floor scattered like shrapnel. Evidence of a 2-year plan to destroy me. Amber had been thorough, methodical. She'd thought of everything. Except she didn't know Lucas could read. Didn't know he'd been watching learning stealing evidence from under her nose. Didn't know her victim had survived worse than her in the jungles of Southeast Asia. I held that boy close while fury burned through me. Amber thought she'd planned everything perfectly. She had no idea we were about to turn her own evidence against her. Downstairs in my kitchen, I spread those documents across the table like battle maps. Lucas watched, waiting for orders. This is war, I said. 3 phases, medical proof, document everything. Trap her confession. Lucas nodded, sitting straighter, ready to fight. At 3:15, I called Dr. Mark Stevens. We'd been friends for 15 years. Mark, I need emergency blood work today. Trust me. How soon can you get here? 30 minutes. By 4 o'clock, a nurse was drawing blood. Mark stood in the doorway, concerned but not pushing. Results by tomorrow morning, he said. Back home by 5, Lucas was studying those documents like battle plans. Your mother's going to call tonight, I told him. She always checks in on day 2, right? He nodded. She needs to think her plan is working. I need to convince her I'm confused. Declining. We spent the next hour rehearsing. I practiced slurring words, repeating myself, forgetting things. Lucas corrected me when I wasn't convincing enough. Sometimes appearing weak is the strongest position, I explained. Let the enemy think they've won, then hit them from behind. The phone rang at exactly 8 o'clock, predictable. Amber, I answered, letting my voice sound tired. Oh, hello, dear. Harold, how are you feeling? How's Lucas? I let silence stretch too long. Lucas. Oh, yes. Good boy. So quiet. Have you been eating properly? I think so, though I can't remember if I gave the boy lunch today. Did I? Genuine confusion crept in. And this morning, I couldn't find my wallet. Across the table, Lucas gave me a thumbs up. Oh, my, Amber said. I heard the satisfaction she couldn't quite hide. That does sound concerning. I've been so tired. Keep thinking I see Mary around the house. I let my words blur. She was in the garden yesterday. Or was that? What day is today? Thursday, Harold. It's Thursday evening. Thursday. Right. I repeated it slowly. Have you been drinking your tea? Her voice sharpened. Tea? Yes, helps me sleep. I sleep so much now. I slurred the words together. Is it supposed to make me this tired? That's completely normal. At your age, your body needs more rest. She talked about memory care facilities and professional help, about discussing my options when they returned. I made vague, agreeable sounds, playing a man too confused to understand his own fate. When I hung up, I dropped the act immediately. Lucas stared at me, amazed. She totally believed it. 8 years you stayed silent, I said. I can act confused for 2 days. I looked at the calendar. Thursday evening. They'd return Sunday afternoon. 48 hours to finalize our trap. I'd run operations with tighter timelines in Vietnam. But back then I'd been fighting for coordinates and objectives I barely understood. This time, I was fighting for family. Friday morning at 9 o'clock, Dr. Stevens called, with results that confirmed everything Lucas had told me. Harold, your blood work came back. Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, zolpidem, all unprescribed. The levels were dangerously high. Another week at those concentrations, and you would have suffered irreversible cognitive damage or death. I closed my eyes. Hearing it from a doctor made it real in a way those progress notes hadn't. I know who did it, Mark. I need 24 hours to handle this my way. Harold, you need to call the police right now. By Monday morning, you'll be testifying in court, I promise. But I need one more day. Silence. Then Mark sighed. 24 hours. Not a minute more. At 11, I called Daniel Harper, my lawyer, for 15 years. Daniel, if I record someone without them knowing in Ohio, is it admissible in court? A pause. Yes. Ohio is a one-party consent state. As long as you're part of the conversation, it's completely legal. Why, I'll need you Sunday evening, around 6. By 2 that afternoon, Lucas and I were at the electronics store on High Street. I bought a digital voice recorder small enough to hide, but sensitive enough to catch every word. Professional grade. We tested it in the parking lot. Lucas stood 15 feet away and spoke normally. When I played it back, every syllable came through crystal clear. That evening at my kitchen table, I laid out the plan step by step. The recorder would go behind the war history books on my living room shelf. Lucas would play quietly on the floor, silent and invisible like Amber expected. When the moment came when she'd said enough to condemn herself, he would stand up, walk to the shelf, take out the recorder, and speak. Lucas's hands twisted together. What if I'm too scared? What if I can't do it? I covered his hands with mine. You've been brave for 8 years, soldier. One more day, that's all I'm asking. Saturday morning, we tested the recorder repeatedly, checked the batteries, practiced placement until Lucas could do it smoothly. By afternoon, we ran full rehearsals. I practiced confusion, slurring words, and losing my train of thought. Lucas practiced staying silent and still. Then we switched roles. I can talk, Lucas said, his voice getting stronger with each repetition. I've always been able to talk. Mom made me too scared. Louder, I coached. Look straight at them. Every word matters. We rehearsed 5 times until his voice rang clear and confident. By evening, Lucas couldn't eat much dinner. His stomach was twisted with nerves. I told him stories from Vietnam to distract him about soldiers younger than Christopher, who'd found courage they didn't know they had. At bedtime, Lucas looked up from his pillow. Grandpa, what if everything goes wrong tomorrow? Then we adapt, but it won't. The truth is on our side, and we have the evidence to prove it. Lucas fell into fitful sleep. I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my chair, looking at Mary's photograph on the mantel, thinking about family and betrayal. Tomorrow, Christopher and Amber would walk into an ambush. They just didn't know it yet. Sunday at 2 o'clock, I heard Christopher's car pull into the driveway. That familiar sound triggered something in me I hadn't felt since 1968. The hyper-focused calm before an ambush. Lucas and I exchanged one quick glance across the living room. His brown eyes were steady, ready. We'd rehearsed this moment for 2 days straight. I positioned myself in my armchair, slumped shoulders, hair uncombed, shirt buttoned wrong one side, hanging lower than the other. I'd even skipped shaving that morning. The mirror had shown me exactly what Amber wanted to see, a man falling apart. Lucas sat on the floor near my feet, action figures arranged around him. He gave me the smallest nod, then went perfectly still and silent. Back to the role he'd played for 8 years. The front door opened. Harold, we're home. Amber's voice rang through the house, bright and false. She appeared in the living room doorway, tanned from 4 days in the Caribbean sun. Her eyes swept over me, taking in my disheveled appearance for a split second. A flash of irritation crossed her face, as if she was surprised to find me still sitting upright in my chair instead of being rushed to the hospital. Then she arranged her face into concern. Oh, Harold, you poor thing. You look exhausted. Have you been taking care of yourself? I let my gaze wander like I was having trouble focusing. Amber, you're back, was it? How long were you gone? 4 days, Harold. Just 4 days. I repeated it slowly. 4 days. Right. Let confusion cloud my face. I've been so tired. Can't remember if Lucas ate breakfast this morning, or was that yesterday? Christopher came in behind her carrying their luggage. When he saw me, all the color drained from his face. "Dad," he said, his voice strained. "Are you okay?" Amber shot him a warning look, sharp, quick, then turned back to me with that sugar-sweet voice. "He's just tired, Christopher. At his age, these things happen naturally." She settled onto my couch like she owned it, getting comfortable, confident. "Harold, have you been taking your tea?" "The special blend I prepared." I nodded vaguely. "Tea? Yes, the tea helps. I sleep so much now, all the time sleeping." "That's good." She couldn't quite hide the pleasure in her voice. "That's very good. Your body needs rest." She turned to Christopher. "See what I mean? He's clearly declining faster than we thought. We really need to have that conversation we've been putting off." Christopher opened his mouth. "Amber, maybe we should—" "Christopher," she cut him off. Hard, final. "Your father needs help. Professional help." She turned back to me, and now the mask was slipping. Now I could see what was really underneath. "Harold, how would you feel about a place where nurses could watch over you, where people could make sure you're safe?" I made my voice small, defeated. "I don't want to be trouble. A burden to you kids." "You're not a burden?" The words were right, but the tone was all wrong. But nature takes its course. Some people your age simply fade faster than others, especially when they're not as sharp as they used to be. She was warming to her subject now, getting bolder. "A memory care facility would be best for everyone. Then we could handle your affairs properly. The house, the finances, all those complicated things you don't need to worry about anymore." Christopher shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. "Amber." She ignored him completely. "Everything will be so much simpler," she continued almost to herself, "once the proper arrangements are made." The recorder behind those books on my shelf was catching every word, every cold calculation, every piece of evidence we needed. I sat there playing my part, the confused old man, the easy victim, letting her think she'd won. That's when Lucas stood up, slowly, deliberately. And he didn't walk toward me. He walked toward the bookshelf. Amber's voice cut off mid-sentence. Lucas walked to the bookshelf, reached behind the old war books, pulled out the digital recorder, turned to face his mother, and spoke. "This has been recording since you walked in." Amber's face went white. "And I can talk," Lucas said, his voice clear and steady. "I have always been able to talk." Silence crashed through the room. Amber's mouth opened. "That is impossible. You are mute." "The doctors." "The doctors you lied to," Lucas said. "I pretended because you said you would hurt Grandpa if I spoke." Christopher stared at his son, stunned. "You can really—" I stood up, dropping the confused act entirely. "The boy has been able to speak his entire life, just like I have been completely lucid for 5 days." Amber stumbled backward. "You are not confused." "Not even a little," I said coldly. "Turns out stopping your drug tea works wonders. I do not know what you—" "Do not—" I cut her off. I pulled the manila folder from beside the chair. "We have your documentation right here. Your research, your drug studies, your progress notes." I read aloud, October 10th. "Prepared concentrated doses for cruise week. Permanent resolution within 48 to 72 hours. I looked up. "That is how you described ending my life." Christopher's face drained of color. "Dad, no. She would not. She has been poisoning me for 2 years," I said. "Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, zolpidem. Dr. Stevens ran a blood panel. It is all documented." "The recorder caught everything," I added. "Every word you said today." I reached into the folder again. "But you want to know the worst part? I found the DNA test, Amber." I held it up. "Lucas is not Christopher's biological son. You trapped my son with another man's child." Christopher's face told me he had known. Lucas stepped forward. "I found it 2 years ago. I know I am not really a Bennett." I turned to him, my voice firm. "You are a Bennett soldier. Blood does not make family. Honor does." Amber's face twisted with rage. "That bastard ruined everything I never wanted him." She realized what she had just admitted. "And you were supposed to fade away quietly. The tea was working until—" She lunged toward Lucas. "If you had just stayed silent." I moved on pure instinct, stepping between them and catching her wrist. "Touch that boy, and it will be the last thing you do." Amber thrashed against my grip. "Let go. He is not even your real grandson." I held her with the same steady grip I had used to hold a rifle 50 years ago. That boy has more honor than you could have in 10 lifetimes. I looked at Lucas. Call 911 soldier. Attempted grievous bodily harm and elder abuse. Lucas ran to the kitchen phone. Christopher collapsed into the chair. Dad, I am sorry. I did not know she would actually. I thought she was just talking. You knew enough, I said. You knew about the boy. You knew she was doing something. You chose silence. She threatened divorce to take everything I was trapped. So you let her silence your son for 8 years, poison your father. You became complicit. Lucas called from the kitchen. They are coming, Grandpa. 5 minutes. The sirens grew louder. Amber stopped struggling when she heard them. Lucas stood behind me, his hand gripping my shirt. We had survived. But looking at my son crumbled in that chair, the pain of that was almost equal to the betrayal. The wheels of justice turned slowly. But when they reached Amber, they ground everything she had built on lies into dust. Sunday evening, the police took Amber in handcuffs. She screamed that I had manipulated Lucas, that the boy was mentally ill, that I was senile. The officers said nothing. They had heard the recording. Christopher rode in a separate car for questioning. His face was gray. The detectives interviewed Lucas and me separately over the next 3 days. Lucas answered every question in his clear, steady voice. He explained the threats at age 5, the 8 years of forced silence, the evidence he had gathered. Doctor. Emily Watson evaluated Lucas at the prosecutor's request. Her report confirmed exceptionally high intelligence. The forced silence was documented psychological abuse. Most importantly, she certified him as a credible witness. Dr. Mark Stevens testified about the blood work. The levels of lorazepam diphenhydramine and zolpidem in my system had been dangerously high. Another week, he said, and I would likely have suffered irreversible damage or death. Daniel Harper presented the evidence, the recorded confession, the progress notes, in Amber's handwriting, the DNA test showing motive, the tea packets from my cabinet. Lab analysis confirmed the packets contained the same drugs found in my blood. Amber's defense tried to claim I had planted evidence that Lucas had been coached, that the recording was doctored. But they could not explain the progress notes in her handwriting. They could not explain the drugs in the tea she had personally prepared. They could not explain her voice on the recording, cold and calculating. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge sentenced Amber to 15 years in prison for attempted grievous bodily harm, elder abuse, and child endangerment. Christopher received 5 years of probation. He had cooperated fully and expressed genuine remorse. The judge made clear that his silence had enabled 8 years of abuse. The custody hearing was brief. Christopher appeared voluntarily. I relinquish all parental rights, he told the judge. Lucas deserves better. My father has been more of a father than I ever was. The judge granted me full legal guardianship. A month later, I visited Christopher at the county jail. He looked 10 years older. How is he? Christopher asked. Lucas, talking nonstop, thriving. Christopher's eyes filled. Good. That is good. Dad, I was so weak. I know that does not excuse. No, I said, it does not. You let her hurt that boy for 8 years. You let her poison me. You were a victim at first, but then you became complicit. I will live with that forever. But can you tell him I love him even though I failed? I was silent for a long moment. I will tell him. Whether he forgives you is his choice. But yes, I will tell him. Thank you, Dad, and thank you for being strong when I could not be. I left without looking back. I would not visit again. 6 months later, as spring gave way to early summer, Lucas and I had built something I thought I had lost when my wife passed a family, bound not by blood, but by choice and survival. There is a difference between surviving and living. Lucas taught me that difference. On a Saturday morning in late April, Lucas and I sat on the dock at the local reservoir fishing lines, cast into water that reflected the pale blue sky. The air smelled like fresh grass and possibility. My science presentation on sound waves got the highest grade in the class. Lucas said, his voice animated. Mrs. Brooks said it was the best she had ever seen from a 3rd grader. I smiled. Not surprised, soldier. You are making up for lost time with that voice. Dr. Watson says I am progressing really well. She thinks I might be ready to skip ahead to 4th grade next year. Your grandmother would have been so proud, I said quietly. Bennets have always been sharp. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lines, listening to the spring birds. Grandpa, Lucas's voice was softer now. Do you ever think about my biological father? I did not hesitate. No, because I am looking at my grandson right now. But we do not share blood. We share something stronger than blood, I said. Blood is an accident of birth. Family is who you are willing to fight for. We did that. That makes us family in the truest sense. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Can I still be a Bennet? I turned to face him fully. Son, you earned that name. You showed more courage than most soldiers I served with. You are a Bennet because you acted like a Bennet when it mattered most. His eyes brightened. I want to be like Dr. Watson when I grow up. Help kids who cannot speak because they are too scared. My throat tightened. You will do extraordinary things, Lucas. You understand them in a way no one else can. Do you think I can really do it? You survived 8 years and saved both our lives, I said. You can do anything. Lucas's fishing rod suddenly jerked hard. His eyes went wide. I got something. We both grabbed the rod, working together to reel in whatever he had hooked. The line fought back, bending the rod in a sharp arc. Easy now, I coached. Let it tire itself out first. After a minute of struggle, a small bass broke the surface, twisting in the sunlight. Lucas laughed with pure joy, a sound I would never take for granted. We brought the fish to the dock, and I showed Lucas how to release it properly, supporting its weight in the water until it swam away. Grandpa, Lucas asked as we reset the lines, do you think Dad will ever visit? I considered the question carefully. I do not know. Your father is facing his own guilt, but we are okay. Better than okay. Yes, Lucas said simply. We are. The sun climbed higher. A breeze rippled across the water. Lucas hummed quietly as he watched his line, a sound he had been denied for 8 years. The army taught me about duty. My son taught me about disappointment. But Lucas taught me the real meaning of family, not who shares your blood, but who shares your battles. 2 weeks ago, Lucas had his first session with Dr. Watson, where he talked about wanting to help other children someday. She told me afterward that his empathy and insight were remarkable. That trauma, when survived, can become strength. Christopher sent a letter from jail. I have not opened it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe Lucas will want to read it someday. But that is a choice for another day. At 68, I found my purpose again, not as a soldier, not as a disappointed father, but as the grandfather of a boy who found his voice and saved both our lives. Some families are born. Ours was forged in battle, and that makes it unbreakable. Looking back at everything that happened, I want to share something with you. This true story is not just mine, it belongs to every grandparent who has ever felt powerless, every child who has ever been silenced. Don't be like I was. I ignored the warning signs. I dismissed that uneasy feeling when Amber smiled too sweetly. I trusted blindly when I should have questioned. If you sense something is wrong with a loved one, especially an elderly parent or a quiet child, investigate immediately. Do not wait for proof to fall into your lap, like it did for me. Thank God Lucas found the courage to speak. Thank God I had enough clarity left to listen, and thank God we had each other when everything fell apart. Without divine intervention and that boy's extraordinary bravery, I would not be here telling you this grandpa story. The lesson Lucas and I learned is this. Family is not about DNA. It is about who stands beside you when the battle comes. Blood may connect you by accident, but love and honor connect you by choice. We fought for each other. That made us unbreakable. If you are raising a grandchild, protecting an aging parent, or simply trying to hold your family together, know this, you are not alone. These grandpa stories matter. These true stories save lives. Lucas and I are proof that courage and truth can defeat even the darkest deception. So I ask you, have you ever suspected something was wrong, but stayed silent? What would you have done in my situation? Please comment below and share your thoughts. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like ours. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes the most important battles are fought inside our own homes. Thank you for listening. Stay vigilant, stay strong, and always choose love over silence.